Welcome to Real Estate Coach Uncensored on Inman News, where you'll find the best practices, tools, and technology tips to help you grow your real estate business. Here are your hosts, Bernice Ross and Greg McDaniel.
Welcome. I'm Bernice Ross, the CEO and President of Brokerage up on RealEstateCoach.com. Greg McDaniel's out today, but I'm delighted to welcome one of the wonderful leaders in the industry. She's the face of WomanUP, Sara Sutachan. She's the Vice President of Industry Relations and Strategic Initiatives for the California Association of Realtors. Sara, welcome. Thank you for being with us today.
Bernice, thank you so much. I'm delighted to be here.
Well, one of the things I'm very excited to talk to you about is because with your position at CAR, not only as the face of WomanUP, but also the person who's interfacing with the brokerage community. I know regularly that's part of your job, and you've been having conversations about how they're coping with COVID, but we want to really kind of do a deep dive in how what you've learned from your work at CAR about how this is impacting indie brokers across the country. So we're going to have some great takeaways for indie brokers, but also a lot of these apply to indie brokerage. Even if you're not an indie or a small franchise, these apply across the board. So Sara, I want to talk a little bit, first of all, about the changing demographics. You've got a lot of research on this. How are things changing, and where is the opportunity for me as an indie broker to grow my business? Where would you have me look?
Well, let's talk about age as one of the key demographics that we look at CAR. Our average age is climbing. We're at 58, average age of a realtor. And what we see is slight changes in the percentages. 54% of our members are boomers, and that's coming down a tiny bit from 56% in the last couple of years. Gen Xers, I'm a Gen Xer, we're holding steady at about 26%, but I think what we're starting to see is a upward climb of millennial realtors. And so that percentage climbed to 9%, up from 7% in the previous year. And so I think looking toward the future, not only are Gen Xers really smart generation, just kidding, but Gen Xers and millennials, I'm just saying that because I'm a Gen Xer, but Gen Xers and millennials are the future, and they're starting to tap into real estate at a hopefully growing clip.
Well, again, I think that's one of the great opportunities right now for indies, because when you can get someone who's fresh out of school, and I'm hearing that a lot of the millennials and even the Gen Zs are saying, no, I don't want to work for someone else. I want to build something for me. And real estate's one of the places I can do that. So Sara, one of the things I'd like to have you talk about is when COVID hit, you started doing broker calls, and it started with 200 brokers. It's up now to 800 in your community. And one of the things we know that's really important if you are an indie is that you really need to double down on being highly niched into your community. So tell me more about what you've learned from working with the community of brokers in terms of how indies can build their communities and tap into some of the resources that are available through their association and other places.
So this community of brokers, we meet every Friday. We learn from each other. They're asking legal questions. They're tapping into us and our leadership expertise. Our president-elect, CEO are all on the calls every week. And that really has built a wonderful two-way street with the brokerage community here. And what we are also seeing is that it's helping small indie brokers in that space because they may not have an in-house general counsel, for example. And so I think there's a lot of value in that. There's a lot of trust being built among the members of this community. They're sharing in the chat, they're sharing best practices, they're answering each other's questions before we even get to those questions. And I will say, Kama Burton, who is a part of the community, just opened her brokerage, her indie brokerage, CMB Realty Services in the Inland Empire, opened during a pandemic. And we talked about that at WomanUP this year, but also she taps into this community and she really values the ideas shared, the comments shared. She feels a sense of connection to this group. She feels that she's not alone in some of her worries and uncertainties as she creates and builds this brokerage. And so I think that's a really great takeaway, that you can lean on support from your colleagues, from your community, to answer questions, to get a feeling of normalcy a little bit, and know that you are not alone.
It's very interesting that you bring that up, Sarah, because when I was doing the interviews, one of the things I heard from a lot of the indie brokers is that they actually talked to other brokers in their local area and they were happy to help. It's like there's a community there. And then also, one of the things, of course, that's so hard for you when you're an indie are the legal issues. So how does, I don't think people always understand how important it is that they tap into the resources at their local association as an indie broker. Could you say a little bit more about that?
Yeah, I think that has been a big piece of our calls each week with our brokers. It is very much legal focused because people want to make sure that they're doing the right things for their community, for their agents, and for their clients. And so I think there are so many associations across the country that have a legal arm that put out, at the California Association of Realtors, we put out legal Q&As and quick guides, and we try to get this information out to the members. And so I know NAR has a lot of resources, and I know a lot of local associations are starting their own broker, town halls, and really tapping into touching and understanding the needs of the brokerage community.
Well, one of the things too I've heard people, indies talk about doing is that when they first got started, they joined their local association, but got involved at the state level, and they found tremendous support because when you join at the state level, you're getting people who are not in direct competition with you, and they're happy to support you. And one of the things, I don't care if you're running, one of the big, you're CEO of one of the big franchises, or you're an indie, it's lonely at the top. It's where do you turn?
That's right. That's right. I think that's the beauty of building these communities. And I'll give a shout out to Laura Monroe. She's done a phenomenal job during COVID to tap into the Inman community. And you're seeing it all over. You're seeing these communities. Facebook is a wonderful tool to create groups within the Facebook ecosystem. And you get like-minded people sharing ideas, helping each other. I mean, WomanUP is one. Awesome Females is another. And it's really a beautiful thing. We just had a conversation with Marcy James and Tiffany McQuaid on building communities in Facebook and out there. And you get such great best practices, you get great ideas, and you're able to tap into other like-minded individuals, especially as you lead. And as you said, as you're leading and it is lonely at the top, it's nice to feel supported by others around you.
Well, one of the things I wanted to add to the conversation here, Sarah, is that as an indie broker, one of the things that you can do in terms of building your business is to go deep into the niches that you serve and then take advantage of Facebook business pages and create a business page for the niche that are the niches that you serve. So say you've got 3 or 4 major subdivisions that your brokerage specializes in, or a given township, or whatever it is, a local area, and really build out that Facebook page with, and again, we've seen this, something like 70% of the billion-dollar agents in this country, and this is an old study, but about 70% of them were involved in giving back to their communities. So the community thing, it needs to take place in terms of your support system so that you can also support the people in your community. And you mentioned Tiffany McQuaid. She told me after they'd had a major hurricane in Florida that she was out going, checking on people, who are maybe in areas that, others couldn't get to. And became kind of this clearinghouse to find out what's going on in the community. We've seen this time and time again where realtors have stepped into that position. And as an indie, that's something that you can do because you're local and you're specialized. So, you know, two pieces here, one for you for your support, but then to help you support your community as well.
Yeah, and it was also, you know, a big piece of the WomanUP research that you conducted, Bernice, for us. And we saw, you know, a lot of the women leaders that we interviewed really tapped into giving back to their
Yes.
community. It was part of their value system. They're leading with a servant heart, and you see it shine through in not only the survey and the research, but in real life. Found in COVID was not only through our broker town halls on Fridays, but also our Facebook interviews. And I'll give a shout out to Deborah Trapin, started a leading through crisis series right as the pandemic hit and the shutdown was in our face, and we were all having trouble catching our breath. What we found was the most important thing from these leaders, not just women, it was all leaders were really tapping into their people, checking in, checking up. You know, I think Tanya Runarvez, who is a senior VP at Realty, one of the biggest companies, real estate companies on the planet, was, you know, checking in on people, her immediate reports, the agents, but also her CEO and the people she reports to. And it's a really great, it was just a beautiful reminder of we are all human, and we were all dealing with a shutdown and a global pandemic in different ways. And I think the beautiful thing about it was that people looked with their heart, and they checked in, and they led with their heart. And I think that is equally as important as metrics.
Well, Tammy Bonnell, who's the CEO of Exit
Oh,
Realty,
Tammy.
talked about, yes, she talked about the importance of putting people first. You know,
Yeah.
people before profit is what she said. And they got through the downturn in, you know, the 2006, 2007, you know, the Great Recession. And again, and stayed profitable during that. And, you know, she recommends, and this is so important if you're indie, admin help is very hard to get right now. It's one of the big challenges that they're facing. You've got to take care of those admins because they are gold. They're hard to find. And so I know that for me was one of the takeaways as well. Sara, have you heard anything along those lines as well, or no?
Absolutely. I mean, you have to check in, and that's what the red thread throughout all of our leading through crisis interviews was check in on every level, right? It was from your admin, your TCs, your lend, even the outer lender community, to the people who work directly with you on your teams, the people, your agents, and you're, even if you're in a bigger company, your CEO. And I think that it's such a great reminder that, again, it's the human aspect of this business. And we all talk about the relationships and what this business is all about. And I love that you commented on Tammy. She came to speak at our staff because not only have we been reaching out and talking with the brokerage community on a regular basis and the WomanUP community and checking in on all levels, you know, our CEO, Joel Singer, really wanted to tap into and make sure that each and every one of our staff was okay. And so we had Tammy come and speak to our staff, and really, she's a phenomenal woman. She's a phenomenal leader, and that was the, you know, the great nugget was people before anything.
And I want to circle back to something that you just said, because I don't think anybody has talked about this. This is the first time. You said check in on your mortgage providers, on your title, escrow. You know, a lot of us don't think about doing this. And if you're the only phone call they've gotten from, you know, a broker, you know, talk about building a relationship and who they're going to go the extra mile for, it's because you know, you've got to be checking in and in relationship with those people who are your partners in your business, who are, you know, we don't always think of, you know, we've got our own internal staffs and our agent and our, you know, clients in our community, but the other people who support what we do. So I thought that was a huge takeaway, Sara. Thank you for bringing that up.
Yeah, it's part of the ecosystem. Like, we're all in this together.
One of the challenges that every one of us faces, we talked about this being lonely at the top, whether you're an indie or you're running any kind of company, if you're the broker of record or the person who's, in charge of it, is how do you balance your business and your personal life? So Sara, here you've got this big position at CAR and you've got 2 kids at home. How do you manage? And then looking at the indies, I know you mentioned being the chief cook and bottle washer. Well, you're that at home, but if you run an indie broker, you're taking out the trash and cleaning the toilets in the office. So
That's right.
How do you balance all of that?
We are all the things, right? I just hope that my kids don't break in here as they did earlier in the green room, Bernice. But yeah, I think there's blurred lines between business and professional now, and you're starting to see more acceptance of, dogs and fur babies and real babies hopping into your Zooms, hopefully fully clothed. But but it does add a layer of complication. We just had a wonderful discussion with Chelsea Pyatt's, Katie Lance, and Dr. Mimi Narte at WomanUP about parenting through a pandemic. And I will, share some of the kind of key takeaways there. It is so important for us to focus on self-care. And Dr. Narte talked about, meditation and making sure that she's relying on her partner, Kofi, who's a top producing, amazing broker, leading, agent in the Los Angeles, entertainment space. But he does some of the work too. He does half the work, should I say. And it's just really important to lean on it, the people around us, family, our broader community. And, one of the things that Katie said really rings true is, we're all kind of dealing with this and we're trying to, limit screen time and limit this and that. And it's like, this is a space where we can give ourselves a little bit of permission to let go of some of the rules that we've instilled and to be a little bit more gentle on ourselves. I think Chelsea Pyatt does her self-care through social media videos because it's her outlet, and if you follow Chelsea on social media, you will pee your pants. It's so funny. She's a riot, but that's her outlet, right? We all need an outlet or some form of self-care that we're really making sure we stay centered and grounded as leaders so that we can be all the things for all the people.
One of the things you mentioned was this notion of partner support. And I would dare say of the women we interviewed, 90% of that are running brokerages, whether they're indies or franchises, they had a partner in their life who is there helping them, as you mentioned, like Kofi, handling part of the responsibilities. Sometimes that partner can be a business partner. It can be a good friend. It doesn't have to be someone that you're necessarily married to. But again, with the WomanUP studies, we've seen this now across the 80 interviews. I dare say 90% of the women we interviewed had someone in their life who was a romantic partner, whether it's spouse or living in or whatever, who was there supporting them and helping them, giving them the space to do what they need to do as a leader for their brokerage. So Sara, to wrap up for today, what's one final takeaway that you'd give for our viewers?
Wow, is checking in with people, just really checking in on your people. And I think the power of community is really apparent in this global pandemic. And what we're seeing is the Inman community, the WomanUP community, the brokerage community. We can all learn from each other and help each other.
Sara, thank you. That's been great. We've been visiting with Sara Sutachan. She is the Vice President of Industry Relations and Strategic Initiatives for the California Association of Realtors. Thank you, Sara, for being with us today.
Thank you, Bernice.
Thanks for joining us for Real Estate Coach Uncensored on Inman News. Be sure to tune in for our next show when we'll be back to share even more ways you can grow your real estate business. For the latest news and analysis, check out the other great stories today on Inman News.